Hello gamers, this is Mark from the Solobot channel, and today we're going to play Marvel Champions from Fantasy Flight Games. Marvel Champions is a living card game where you take on the identity of one of your favorite Marvel superheroes and fight against a supervillain. You win the game by defeating the villain before they can complete their evil scheme, or before your heroes are defeated. A scheme is complete when its threat is equal to the value shown on the card. You can play the game with up to 4 heroes, but today we'll play with a single hero. Our game will pit Spider-Man versus Rhino. The villain setup is explained on their main scheme cards, with any additional setup detailed on the village stage card. There are some modular sets you can swap out to increase the difficulty, or just for some variety. You will typically need to defeat 2 villain stages to win, which is the case with Rhino. For this playthrough, we will battle Rhino stages 1 and 2. As you can see on the card here, it'll give you contents, what you need to set up your deck, and also what you do at the end. So in this one, all you will do is you simply flip the card over to side B. And here with the setup, you notice the loss scenario, or the victory scenario for the villain, is 7 scheme times the number of players. That's what that little icon means. So in this case, since we have 1 hero, if 7 scheme threat, which is denoted by these tokens, is on this card at any time, we lose the game. This tells you at the bottom, this number here tells you how much threat is on the card when you begin, when you flip the stage over. And this, and the arrow tells you how much threat is placed at the start of the villain turn, which we'll get into a little bit later. Okay, your hero deck is built with a fixed set of cards for the hero. In this case, there's a certain number of Spider-Man cards. You can add cards from one of the 4 aspects. In this case, you can see we have the red aggression cards that we're using for this one, and you can also add some basic cards in the deck. So at the start of the round, or start of the game, you will draw up to your hand size, which in the case of Peter Parker, hit the alter ego size is 6. And what you're allowed to do is mulligan at one point. So you can take a look at your starting hand of cards, and you're allowed to mulligan. You would simply discard the cards and draw more. And in this game, you do not shuffle them back into your deck, as you might with some other games. So for this playthrough, I'll keep my hand face up over here so you can see what's in my hand. Also, one thing you'll notice, we have this one card here, an obligation card. This is a different colored back than the rest. This is specific to Spider-Man. What you'll do with this is you will shuffle this into the villain deck, and it could come into play at some point later. So now that we have finished our setup, I think we are ready to begin. I'll kind of go through this each step of the way. I'll go through kind of how they work, what actions you can take, how you play cards, and we can go from there. So you'll notice right now we have Spider-Man in his alter ego side, which is Peter Parker. So he has a ability here where he can generate a resource, and we'll get into that in just a bit of how it works. What we can do is, at any point during your turn, you may flip your card over, either from alter ego to hero or hero to alter ego side, but you only do that once per turn. And the side that you are on will become important when it's the villain's turn. It'll determine whether the villain schemes, which goes towards his win condition, or attacks. And we'll get to that a little bit later. So in the beginning, we'll start on the Peter Parker side. So he is able to generate that symbol of resource once per round. And you'll notice also on the cards, each card has at least one symbol on the bottom. And there's basically these 3 symbols: the red, the purple, and the yellow symbols are the resources throughout the game. You notice on the cards have numbers in the upper left-hand corner. That is the total cost to play that card. And how you play cards is you select a card to play, and you pay for it with other cards. So you'll actually discard cards out of your hand to pay for other cards you want to put in play. So I think what we can start with here is we have an Aunt May support, which is cost 1. So we will use this ability to generate a resource. We will put Aunt May in play as a support. Supports will stay out unless there's something on the card that says you must discard it, or if there's an ability throughout the game that says you must discard a support. So now we have Aunt May in play, and what she can do for us is, if we're in our alter ego form, we can exhaust Aunt May and heal damage to Peter Parker. So right now he doesn't have any damage, so his hit points are 10, and he's still at 10, obviously, since we just started. So this is not something that we would activate now, but it's something we can use in the future. Okay, so the next item we can look at is, so we have this card called Webbed Up. It's a pretty good card. You basically web your enemy up, so the next time they would attack, they can't, and on top of that, they'll be stunned at the end. So we'll kind of get into that, how that works. So it says hero form only. So what we'll do is we'll flip over to the hero form. Now you'll notice on the hero form there are 3 abilities here. There's the THW, which is thwart, which will remove threat from the scheme. There's none on here now, so we don't need to do that. Attack, it's simply the value of the attack. We can either attack minions, which may come out later, or we can directly attack the villain. And in this case, the villain, there's 2 stages that we have to defeat. Each stage has a certain number of hit points. Right now there's 14 hit points here on stage 1. So if we defeat stage 1, we would go down to stage 2, deal with whatever happens at the start of stage 2, and try and defeat that before the scheme is complete or before we go down to 0 hit points. So what we will do is we have 4 resources here. So we'll discard all 4 of these over here, and we'll play Webbed Up on the villain. So the interrupt is when it would attack, you discard this card and stun him. So we'll get to that at the end of our turn. So right now we are able to exhaust Spider-Man to do one of his 2 abilities. Also, the defense ability is when the villain attacks Spider-Man, you can exhaust Spider-Man to defend 3 of the damage that would be incoming. So we don't need to do that now. So what we'll do is we'll exhaust Spider-Man to attack for 2. So we simply tick the villain down 2. And that is the end of our turn. So at the end of the turn, we unexhaust all of the cards that were exhausted. We draw it back up to our hand size. You'll notice that in Spider-Man hero form, his hand size is 5, one smaller than when he was in alter ego form. That's typical for most of the heroes, is their hero side, since they're able to attack and do more as a hero, their hand size gets smaller. So there is a negative to this being in hero size. So here are the 5 cards we have, and then that ends the hero turn. So now we move on to the villain's turn. So on the villain's turn, the first step is that we place threat on whatever scheme is there. Some villains have more than one scheme that you have to go through in a progression before you actually lose the game. In this case, Rhino just has a single scheme. So it's stated here, if this stage is completed, the players lose the game. So right now, the arrow just says add 1 threat per player, so 1 player. So we simply add 1 threat on the card. The next step for the villain phase is determined by whether or not the player, the first player in a multiplayer game, in this case just Spider-Man or Peter Parker, if they're in the alter ego form, the villain would scheme. And if they're in their hero form, which they are now, the villain would attack. Now typically what happens on that is you would take whichever this value is, you would flip the next card over. There are some possible symbols on the bottom, which we'll get to later, that would add to either the scheme or attack, and then you either add threat to that scheme, or you do damage to one of either the main hero or some of the allies. So right now, since he would normally attack, Webbed Up goes into play. So when attached enemy would attack, instead we discard this. And now over here we have the status cards, and now the enemy is stunned. So now the next time Rhino would attack, which would be next turn possibly, we would discard this card again. So Webbed Up actually blocks 2 attacks, which makes it such a great card. Okay, so that is the second phase of the villain turn. Not able to attack, so that's skipped. And now the last phase is the encounter phase. So we take the number of cards off the top of the deck. There are certain schemes or other side schemes that could increase this number, but right now it's 1. And then we simply reveal it. Oh, we got the eviction notice right away. So right now you can flip to alter ego form if you want. And I can exhaust Peter Parker, which would remove this from the game, or I can discard 1 card at random from my hand, and then this card gains surge, which means another card would come off the top of the deck. And all I would do is discard this obligation. So I think we will take advantage of that. We'll flip Peter Parker over. We'll exhaust him. And then we'll remove this card from the game. You also notice that we have these cards over here with Vulture. This is the Spider-Man Nemesis deck. There is a card in here that could cause Vulture to come into play. It doesn't happen every game, but it can possibly happen, so we'll see what happens. And that would happen in the encounter phase. Okay, so that's the end of the villain phase. And now we go back to our hero phase. You'll note that the hero cards only unexhaust at the end of the turn. So because Peter Parker is exhausted, we can't use any abilities on the front side. We still can use this resource ability, but if we flip over, we won't be able to attack or thwart. Okay, so now we can start and take a look at our hand. So we still have one free resource to use. So why don't we do that? So we have here, we'll play this Enhanced Physique. So we'll take the one resource from Peter Parker. We will discard the Spider Tracer to get a second resource, and now we can play this. So this allows us to have 3 counters on this card. And to use this as a hero, on the hero side, we can exhaust this card, remove one of the counters, and generate a resource. So another way to generate extra resources, which usually is beneficial. So what we'll do here is, because Rhino is still stunned, I think we can flip over to the hero side, which really doesn't do us a whole lot here. But it does, instead of allowing Rhino to scheme, Rhino will just remove the stun. We don't really have anything else we're going to play right now, so I think we will end our turn. So we unexhaust Spider-Man, draw back up to the hand size, which is 5. So 2 more cards here. And now it's back to the villain's turn. So once again, the villain starts a turn by scheming, or adding 1 threat, or how much ever threat is indicated by the card. So that's 1. So now we're at 2, up to 7. The next stage is the villain schemes or attacks. We're in hero phase, so the villain would attack, but the Rhino is stunned. So we simply remove the stun card. And now we go to the last phase, which is the encounter phase. So we deal out 1 card. We reveal it. Shadows of the Past. I told you that this might come up, and here it is. So now, when this is revealed, we have to reveal the set-aside Nemesis minion. So that's Vulture. So now, Vulture is now engaged with us. We also have to add in the side scheme. So here it is. There's no when revealed effects on this. This one says, when revealed, each player places a random card from their hand face down here. So now we have to shuffle up our deck, and he basically steals a random card from us. Okay. And now it starts out with this much threat on it, so 3 times the number of players, so 3 threat. This card is an acceleration symbol. So what this means is at the beginning of the turn, instead of just adding 1 threat to this card, we add a second threat to this card. So this makes this condition a lot quicker to get to the loss condition for us. So we do have to pay attention and take care of that. Now we also have to deal with Vulture. So actually he does have a ability, Quick Strike. After this minion engages your hero, it attacks. So in this case, the minions don't get to draw a card to add to their attack, so he simply attacks 3. So we could defend against the attack and block all of it, but then we wouldn't be able to activate Spider-Man this turn, or we can just accept the damage as 3. So I think we'll accept the damage, so 3 damage, so we just move our health track down 3. And in order to get rid of the side scheme, we have to thwart away 3 threat, and then we would get this card back. So we'll have to deal with that at some point soon. So that's the end of the villain's turn, and now we go back to the hero's turn. And now we're in hero form. So now we have a few options here. I think since we have a villain we have to deal with, I think we will play Relentless Assault. And I think it costs 2, so I think we'll exhaust this, take 1 counter off of this to get a fist resource. We'll also play emergency for a resource here, so that pays for 2. So it says hero action attack, deal 5 damage to a minion. If you paid for this card using a fist resources, which we did, the attack gains overkill. So it would do 5 damage to Vulture. Vulture has, actually sorry, we also have to take the other 3 cards and shuffle these into the villain deck once we activate the Spider-Man Nemesis. So we'll do that right now. So Relentless Assault, we're going to do 5 damage to Vulture, but we paid for it with a fist resource, so it gets overkill, so any excess damage is dealt to the villain. So another good one there. So we discard this and this, so that knocks out Vulture, and 1 extra damage done to Rhino. So not too bad there. Now we do have to be careful. We have some issues we have to deal with there. So why don't we start working on that, and this time Spider-Man will thwart this time. So a thwart is value 1. So we take, there was 3, we take 1 threat off of any scheme. So we'll do the side scheme. So now it's down to 2, but it's still out there. Now the other ones we have, we can't really play either the other 2 cards right now. We can't play Tigra. We only have 2 resources, and it would cost 3 to put her in play. So I believe that's the end of our turn. So now we unexhaust these, draw back up to our hand size of 5. So draw 2 more cards. And now we're over to the villain's turn. So now that we have this acceleration token, instead of only putting 1, we put 2. So we'll replace this 1 with a 3. So now there's 4 threat out of 7 on the card. So we have to be careful with that, or we could end up losing the game. Now Rhino is not stunned anymore. So now Rhino is going to be able to attack. We don't have any other minions. We have an option of defending, but I think we still have 7 hit points, so I think we'll accept that. So we take attack of 2. And now when the main villain attacks, he gets an encounter card, and we flip over. And now you look at the bottom, and if it's a certain symbols, like these symbols, the kind of triangular symbols, just add numbers to the attack or the scheme. If you have a star symbol, you have to look at the card. So this one says boost. If this activation deals damage to a friendly character, stun that character. So that's going to be a problem from an attacking standpoint. So it's just 2 attacks, so we take 2 damage. But because of this, now Spider-Man is stunned. So that means the next time we would want to attack with Spider-Man, we would remove this card instead. But we would still have to exhaust in order to do that. So not great there, but I think we can deal with it. So that ends the villain's turn, and now we're back to the hero turn. So now we do have to deal with these 2 items here. One thing I did miss is when the villain initiates an attack against you, you draw a card. So I should have drawn a card there. I actually could have used backflip, but maybe we'll save that for next turn. You'll see how that works then. So I think what we will want to do now is probably play Nick Fury so we can deal with that a little bit. So Nick Fury is going to cost 4. So I think we will exhaust this for 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we can play those 4. So that's 4 resources. Discard these, discard this token. Now we get to put Nick Fury in play. So his response is when he enters play, I can choose one. I can remove 2 threat from a scheme, draw 3 cards, or deal 4 damage to an enemy. In this case, because we have so much threat out here, I think I'll use the remove 2 threat from a scheme. So we remove these 2. That means that this side scheme is taken care of. It's defeated. So now we get to return this card to our hand. Okay, not a bad card to get back there. Now maybe we can play Tigra. We'll see how this turn comes out. One thing about Nick Fury is at the end of the entire round, so after the hero and villain take their turn, if he's still in play, he will be discarded. So we got to get our use out of him now while we can. So one thing we can do here is we can thwart to help get threat off of this scheme, which I think is a good idea in this case. And you'll notice on the allies, they have this little symbol sometimes under the thwart or the attack. So that means if they do that, they will take a damage. And his total hit points is here in red, so he has 3 hit points, so this won't defeat him. So we'll do the 2 thwart actions, so that means we take 2 scheme off of this card, so down from 4 down to 2. And that is the end of Nick Fury's turn. So I think now that we have... I think what we'll also do is I think we'll actually put Tigra in play. So this card, you'll notice this card is special. It has 2 resources on it. There's no other ability, so it's really just a resource card. And we'll use Backflip for the 3rd resource. So now we put Tigra in play. So Tigra has an ability, a response after she attacks and defeats a minion. You can heal 1 damage from her. There's no minions out right now, so we won't be able to use that. But we have the option of thwart and attack. I believe in this case, I think since there's an attack 2, I think we will exhaust her to attack 2 on the villain. So now Rhino is down to 9. I think for Spider-Man, I think we will use this to attack, and instead we just remove the stun card. I think we will also flip over to the alter ego side, and now that we're on the alter ego side, we will use Aunt May. So we will exhaust Aunt May and heal 4 damage to Peter Parker. So now we're back up to 9 out of 10. So not bad, we just have to watch for this. Hopefully we don't get anything bad on the scheming side. So that is the end of our turn, no more cards. So we will unexhaust all of the cards and the 2 allies and draw up to our hand size. Now we're back to the hand size of 6. Okay, now we start the villain's turn. Now we're back to just 1 threat at the start. But since we're in our alter ego side, now Rhino is going to scheme. So it's 1 plus the number of boost icons on the bottom of the card. So 2 more, so 3 total. So wow, we're pretty close here. We're at 6 out of 7, so we're going to have to deal with that next turn. And now we do the last step of the villain phase, which is the encounter card. Enhanced Ivory Horn. Uh-oh. Now we're... he's got a pretty strong attack now. So now he adds 1 more to his attack value. But we can spend 3 fist resources to discard this card when we're in hero form if we want to. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. It's a pretty good attack. But now the villain turn is over. So now we're back to the hero turn. Let's see what we can do. And at the end of the round, Nick Fury was still in play. So he is now discarded. Okay, so it looks like we have some pretty good cards here that we can use. So I think we will take a look at doing that. We have a resource here. I think we won't use that. We'll generate a resource. So we have a science resource, I believe they're called, to use. And we'll flip him over to the hero side. And we'll play Swinging Web Kick. So we have the 1 resource from Peter Parker, 2 more from the Strength card for 3, and we'll play Swinging Web Kick. So a hero action, deal 8 damage to an enemy. So we're going to do 8 damage to Rhino, so that takes Rhino stage 1 down to 1 health. Okay, so why don't we just finish him off. So we'll have Tigra attack for 2, which does enough damage to defeat stage 1 Rhino. Okay, so now stage 1 Rhino is done. Now we move on to stage 2 Rhino. So it says here, when revealed, search the encounter and discard pile for the Breaken and Taken side scheme and reveal it. So let's go through. So now we have this side scheme over here. Shuffle up the encounter deck. So now when revealed, place an additional 1 times the number of players threat on this card. So it normally starts off with 2, 1 extra, so now we have 3 on this card. And this symbol on here means during the encounter phase, we draw an additional card at the end of the villain phase. So something we will have to pay attention to on that also. Now you'll notice also Rhino now has 1 scheme, but this one has 1 more attack. So now with this Enhanced Ivory Horn, he now has a 4 base attack and 15 hit points. So we do 15 hit points to Rhino, we will win the game. Okay, so Spider-Man still has his action available. Oh, in this case, if we allow Rhino to add the 1 at the beginning of the turn, we will lose the game. So I think Spider-Man is going to have to exhaust and thwart one of those away. Okay, I don't see we can... I think the other thing we will look at doing here, why don't we play Tack Team? So we have, it's an aggression card. We have this power of aggression, which doubles the number of resources this card generates when paying for an aggression card. So instead of 1, it does 2. We'll add in Relentless Assault for 3, and that gives us Tack Team. And this one also puts 3 counters on it. And the action is I can exhaust Tack Team and remove 1 attack counter and deal 2 damage to enemies. So why don't we start by doing that? And we start off doing 2 damage to Rhino. Get him closer to end there. And I think we will end our turn there. So we'll unexhaust everyone, draw back up to our hand size of 5. Okay, now we still have backflip, so I think we'll end up using that this turn. So we start the villain phase. Start off with 1 threat on there, so we're 6 out of 7 still. And now we go to the villain's attack phase. So the villain is going to attack. So Spider Sense lets us draw a card. Now the villain attack is 4. And we'll add in a boost card. Boost card is 1, so that would be 5 total damage if we wanted to take it. But I think we will play backflip. So interrupt defense. When you would take any amount of damage from an attack, prevent all of that damage. So good job, Spider-Man. He backflipped out of the way of Rhino's charging attack. Well done. But now we go to an encounter phase, but we have this still. So now we have to deal with 2 encounter cards instead of just 1. So we draw 2, we flip these 1 at a time. So charge, oh, even a better attack now. So now not only that, Rhino has +3 attack, but when this one, one attack will gain overkill, so excess damage would go through any ally and onto me. So unfortunately, backflip would have been great for that. Hopefully we can get another one. So I'll have to watch that. So now his base attack is 7. And the second encounter card, so Caught Off Guard. When revealed, discard an upgrade or support you control. So this is one of those cards that would take out one of these cards. So now we have to decide which of these 3 we want to get rid of. This one still has 2 counters, does 2 damage each time. I think we probably can afford to get rid of Enhanced Physique. So, and if we didn't or couldn't discard any cards, this card would gain Surge, which means another card comes off. So we met the requirements of this, and now the villain turn is over. So let's see how we want to do. I think Webbed Up is probably a good idea once again, although we do have to deal with this. But I think we definitely need to go with Webbed Up. So these 4 cards we'll use to pay for Webbed Up. So that'll stop Rhino for attacking for a couple turns, which is what we need. I think we'll use Tack Team to deal 2 damage. Try and get to our cards that give us a big attack. I think we will exhaust Spider-Man to thwart 1. And I think since we have Rhino keeping him from attacking for a couple turns so far, I think we can maybe afford to get rid of Tigra to help get this threat down. So we will have Tigra thwart, get rid of 1 there. Now Tigra has 3 damage. Her health was 3, so that means she's defeated and removed from the game. We can't flip back to the alter ego form because that would give Rhino not only the 1 threat at the start, but also a scheme action, which would likely take us over 7 and lose the game. So we're going to have to stay in hero form unless we can get something to take down this threat. So no more cards. I think we're done. We unexhaust, draw back up to our hand size of 5. There we got the swinging web kick. See if that's going to be enough to get us there. It might. So now we start with the villain phase. So add 1 threat to the card. We're in hero phase. Rhino would attack, but Rhino's webbed up. So we take this. Remember, when an attached enemy would attack, this card webbed up and then stun the enemy. So lose this attack and stun for the next time. So very helpful card there. That ends the attack phase. Now we're to the encounter phase. We still have 2 cards to deal with. Hydra Bomber. Okay, so first one, when reveal, choose either take 2 damage or place 1 threat on the main scheme. Well, we don't really want to place threat on the main scheme, so we will take 2 damage. And now he's encountered with us. So now the next one, Explosion. When revealed, if Bomb Scare is in play, assign X damage among heroes and allies where X is the amount of threat on Bomb Scare. If Bomb Scare is not in play, the card gains Surge. So Bomb Scare is not in play, so Surge means another card is drawn. Hydra Mercenary. Oh, this is unfortunate. Guard. While this minion is engaged with you, you cannot attack the villain. Not something we were planning on. So now we have to deal with the Mercenary before we can attack Rhino. Okay, we'll figure out a way to deal with that. Okay, so we got to get rid of him first. So now the villain's turn is over. Now we're back to the hero turn. So let's figure out if we can do 11 damage. So we have a swinging web kick that would get us there. We don't have a lot of... We don't try and take him out in 1 turn. We do need to get rid of the Hydra Mercenary for sure, though. So I think what we can do... I think we will pay 2 resources here to put Black Cat in play. And Black Cat's force response is after you play Black Cat, discard the top 2 cards of your deck. Any card with that type of resource goes into your hand. No, we got the energy and the fist, so neither one, so we don't get any of these 2 cards in our hand. But what we do get is basically an attack that doesn't damage Black Cat. So we will use that attack for the Hydra Mercenary. We'll do Attack Team, does 2 more damage. Takes the Hydra Mercenary up to 3, so that defeats Hydra Mercenary. So the guard for Rhino is gone. I think we can freely have Spidey attack. And we have this Skilled Strike. So an interrupt, when your hero makes a basic attack, it gets +2 for that attack. So we have 2 + 2, so 4. So we got Rhino down to 7. So now we have, next turn we have this swinging web kick that deals 8 damage. If we can get a free attack in, we will defeat Rhino. So that's the last card we have for this. So we'll unexhaust. Attack Team is actually gone because all the counters are gone. And now we draw back up to our hand size of 5. So we just have to survive this turn and be able to get a free attack in on Rhino to defeat him. Okay, we start with that 1 threat on the main scheme. So still 6 out of 7. We're in trouble, but we're hanging on. Now the villain would attack, but Rhino is stunned, so he loses his attack. But now the Mercenary gets to attack, and again, it's just this simple 1 attack, no boost cards. We can either have Black Cat defend, or we can have Spider-Man take the damage. I think we'll just have Spider-Man take that damage. So we're actually letting the attack go in undefended. There are certain conditions, typically boost cards for the villains, that will have special effects if you allow an attack to go in undefended. But in this case, an attack of 1 undefended, that means the damage goes to the hero. Okay, and now we still have 2 encounter cards to deal with. Hopefully nothing too bad. Sweeping Swoop. So I'm going to reveal Stun your hero. If Vulture is in play, the card gains Surge. He's not in play, so luckily for that. And the second one, Hydra Mercenary again. Unfortunate. Now we're going to have to deal with that. Another guard, so we cannot attack the villain while the Hydra Mercenary is in play. That is going to be a problem, possibly. So let's see how we can handle this. So we do have Uppercut available to us. But we are going to have to deal with this Rhino's attack now. So let's see. We want to keep that. Oh, I think we can. No, I think we can do this. Okay, so luckily we have this Enrage card. So we're Enrage card. We'll pay the 1 resource. So we will Enrage Black Cat. So now attached to an ally. Attached ally gets +2 attack and takes 1 extra damage after it attacks. So now Black Cat's attack ability is 3. So we'll exhaust her. Do 3 damage to the Guarding Hydra Mercenary. Takes him out. Normally Black Cat would not take any damage for the attack, but this Enraged, now she takes 1 damage. She has 2 hit points, so she's still in the game. But now we have Swinging Web Kick available to us. So luckily we had this Genius card. We have 1, 2, 3 resources. Spider-Man jumps up, flies over, Swinging Web Kick on Rhino. 8 damage. Rhino only has 7 health. Rhino is down to 0. And Spidey has defeated him. But just barely. Okay, that was close. You could see one more threat on the main scheme we would have lost. We still had some hit points here. Always this break-in and take-in card with the extra encounter card dealt every time was a problem. Luckily, we survived it. This charge card, luckily we didn't have to deal with that. We kept Rhino stunned, kept him away from us. Otherwise, that would have been a serious problem for Spidey. But thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.